Happy Healthy Pets by Mark C. Robinson, the show that talks about everything to do with pets. If you love pets, get the pulse right here on pet healthcare, trends, issues, fun pet ideas, and fascinating pet stories. Mark C. Robinson, president of Walkin Pets by handicappets.com, talks to you about cutting-edge advances in pet health and well-being, the latest pet products and services on the market, local and global pet issues, rescues and shelters worth shouting about, and inspirational stories from pet caretakers around the world. Now your host, Mark Robinson.
Hi there. This is Happy Healthy Pets with Mark C. Robinson. I'm Mark, president of Walkin Pets by handicappets.com, where we believe that pets are family and deserve to live happy, healthy lives. You can find us at www.walkinpets.com. I'm here with Lisa Murray, our Walkin Pets blogger and marketing director. We're here to talk to you about keeping your pets healthy and happy every Friday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and on podcast. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
And let people know how they can tweet us.
You can send us a tweet at Walkin Pets, and we'll try to answer it on air.
Thank you. So the title of this show today is They're Not Human. And it's a topic that has a great deal of passion for me and a lot of passion in the industry. Pets go back to ancient times. Ancient Egyptian murals depict nobles and pharaohs keeping pets. Chinese emperor kept dogs. Greek and Roman nobility were avid pet owners, and they were used as working animals, spiritual icons, therapy dogs, status symbols, everything that we use them today. In fact, I think the people's feelings about their pet, the human-animal bond, has been probably unchanged throughout time, always been there. In the 13th to 15th centuries in Europe, pet ownership was frowned on by the clergy. And this was really interesting. They said it was because the food should go to the poor. But a lot of historians and theologians really believe that they discouraged the use of animals because animals were often part of pagan rituals, and they wanted to discourage that. In the Muslim faith, you're required to wash your hands before a prayer if a dog licks you. At first, I thought this was strange, but then I was talking to a Muslim friend who say, "Well, of course you do. They eat their poop." So just some interesting perspective here. In the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries, when people had an animal familiar, they could be accused of witchcraft. Unfortunately, a lot of lonely elderly women who kept pets as companions were, as they do today, were often targets of this and were often accused of witchcraft.
It seems astonishing in today's day and age.
It certainly does. Pet keeping became widespread and really common for the upper classes in the late 17th century after the end of the witch trials. And then the middle classes followed about 100 years later. I think pet caretaking, as we see it today, was really popularized in the Victorian times.
I wonder how much of that, the evolution of pet caretaking came about as people became less dependent on pets for their livelihood, to plow fields and to provide, as an agrarian society, in other words.
Yeah, very possibly, but I also imagine that people fell in love with their working animals as well. Mm-hmm. You can't help but love an animal. That bond seems to come up regardless of whether there's a place for it or not.
I think maybe that's because you have a deep-seated love for animals, but I would argue that that's not true for everybody. Animals have been horrifically abused over time as well. So I think it really quite depends on the person. And maybe as a global movement where animals are being elevated in status, being treated better in in aggregate, but of course there are areas where that is still not true.
Well, I think that started with some of the famous authors. In 1877, Anna Sewell wrote Black Beauty. I know that was one of my favorite books as a kid. And then in 1926, Winnie the Pooh was written. In 1931, Mickey Mouse was invented. And then in 1943, I think everything changed when Lassie came on the scene. These are icons and begin to move us into pets as family. In 1966, the Animal Welfare Act started regulating the treatment of animals in research and exhibition and transport.
And when you think about it, that wasn't that long ago. And finally, they had some legal status, in other words.
They began to get some legal status. In 1975, Peter Singer, an Australian, wrote Animal Liberation, which the billing of the book is New Ethics for Our Treatment of Animals. And it's widely considered to be, within the animal liberation movement, to be the founding philosophical statement of his ideas. And then in 1979, the Animal Legal Defense Fund is established, with their motto is winning the case against cruelty. And then in 1980, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, we know it as PETA, was founded. And their motto is that animals are not ours to eat, wear, experiment on, use for entertainment, or abuse in any other way. And when it comes to pain, love, joy, loneliness, and fear, a rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy.
Very interesting. And I think PETA was the organization that raised awareness of wearing fur coats. Is that true? And also the use of animals in testing in cosmetics, which is quite widespread.
And I remember this very clearly. I remember this as in my childhood. In 1987, a California high school student, Jennifer Graham, made national headlines when she refuses to dissect a frog. This is the beginning of an awareness in society that animals are more than just property. But they cannot organize to defend themselves. Any rebellion that an animal has, like the abused circus elephant that recently attacked and killed its owner, any rebellion is punishable by death instantly.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it? And that's something we don't usually think about in that way. But yes, if a dog bites somebody or that type of thing, often animal control comes and sweeps the dog away, and you're told you have to put the dog down, right? They're
there for our privilege. The key statement, though, is they're not human. And the reason I focused on that statement in my thinking in the last couple of days has been, historically, that statement gives us the moral right to use them any way we see fit. We can keep them as pets. We can kill them and eat them. We can experiment on them. We can put them in cages. We can torture them for perfume, pâté, or even just for our own enjoyment.
So they are property. They're still property.
And here's the thing. I can walk out in the woods and I can shoot a deer. But what about a dog? Whole different thing there.
In our country, not all over the world, though, right? I mean, that's an interesting distinction as well.
I just gave a local farmer $400 to raise a pig for me, and at the end of the season, he's going to kill the pig, and I'm going to have some of the best bacon in town, and all my friends are going to come over looking forward to it.
I'm not. I'm a vegetarian.
Yes, you are. But they'll feel entirely differently if that were, for example, a horse. So there's this built-in cry of they're not human has given rise to slaughter, slavery, genocide, medical experimentation, and unspeakable cruelty to people who are not considered human and animals. There's a built-in hypocrisy to who we are and our relationship with animals. There's a huge gray area around who or what it's okay to enslave, torture, eat, kill, and wipe out as a species. I mean, we talk about species disappearing from the earth, but frankly, the guy who invents a way to wipe out the species of tick He's going to be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, no better was this hypocrisy ever illustrated but in the movie Planet of the Apes. For me, this was a pivotal moment because this is where servants, and for those of you who haven't seen it, if any of you haven't, in that movie, apes begin to be used as servants, as monkeys are often used now as assistant. And, the apes are very smart. They can sign, they can understand simple commands. Dogs can too. But they're not human, so it's okay to enslave them. They're just animals.
Mm-hmm.
In Planet of the Apes, they began to revolt against this. In Planet of the Apes, they began to start demanding their rights. And where we draw the line between they're not human and they have rights is really a huge gray area and a huge area of hypocrisy.
And it's a big area where the consciousness is being raised around the world on this very subject. We spoke a couple of weeks ago with somebody who's involved in animal trafficking in different parts of the world, and people who are fighting against that are trying to give voice to animals who cannot speak for themselves.
There's a huge movement, and we've seen a huge movement in the last 100 years or so for equality amongst people. And this has been a wonderful awareness around our society that human beings are human and deserve to be treated. Nobody should be enslaved. Nobody should be tortured.
And we're still falling behind on that one as well.
Falling well behind on that one.
Yeah, sad to say.
Where we draw the line, and in the movie Planet of the Apes, the line was drawn a little bit wider. Okay, these apes aren't human, but, well, maybe they are. Tell somebody with a dog as a family member who sleeps with his dog every night, who loves and is committed to his dog, that this dog doesn't deserve the benefits of human life, and you'll get an argument.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Mark Robinson with Happy Healthy Pets, and you're listening to our radio show podcast. You can find us at walkinpets.com. I'm here to talk with you about ideas and innovations that keep pets healthy and happy every Friday morning from 9 to 10 and on podcast. The name of this show is titled They're Not Human, and we're talking about how changes in attitudes about pets and animals have affected us in our society. And we've got an amazing guest here for you. His name is Richard Bruce Rosenthal, Esquire. Richard is committed to representing the interest of at-risk pets and companion animals and shelter animals. He fights for the underdogs. He works within the legal system and educates others to work within the legal system in really new and innovative ways to send society the message that animals are not just property and that can be disposed of, but these are sentient beings with inherent rights. Fundamental among those rights is the right for counsel for every animal that faces loss of life or significant loss of liberty. Richard created and developed the Pet Trust and has successfully used this trust to save animals from execution in 27 states. Richard, it's great to have you here.
Hi, good to be here. I've got to correct you on one thing. I didn't create the Pet Trust, though I wish I had. That was actually done by the legislatures of 48 of the 50 states plus District of Columbia. What we create was Pet Trust standing, and that was using trusts to be able to obtain standing in court to represent the animals.
That's amazing work. It's absolutely critical that these animals get some sort of protection, and really, I guess you're the only way they can do that. What kind of cases do you deal with?
Well, we started off originally we were dealing mainly with dangerous dog cases because that is where most of the constitutional abuses were occurring. Dogs were seized, dogs were killed with very little due process. Unfortunately, the way our system is set up, dogs are not entitled to due process themselves, but rather their owners are.
So you don't represent the dogs, you represent the owners.
Well, we're somewhere in the middle. The whole point of trust standing is that very often the owner's interests are not completely aligned with the dog's. The owner has financial liability issues. The owner has criminal liability issues. By creating a trust and having the trustee appear for and represent the dog and only the dog's interests, we're able to avoid a lot of that. And because there are some ethical issues with an attorney representing an owner also representing the dog, the courts have accepted trust standing in an amazing number of cases.
I see. So you're saying that you can't necessarily easily represent me and my property for the dog because there might be a conflict between what I want and what the dog wants. So you'll form a trust.
Not between what you want and what the dog wants, but rather, very often, in a lot of states, the dangerous dog cases bring criminal charges with them. A defendant who is seeking to avoid jail or seeking to avoid fines and financial liability, often his interests diverge from the dog's, which is to stay alive.
I see.
And when the prosecutor is taking the position of, well, if you'll agree to let us kill the dog, we'll drop the charges, there is a conflict. And when you have an owner who cares about the dog and is willing to put the dog into the trust and allow us to represent the dog separate and apart from the owner, it creates a problem for the courts that they really can't get around other than by letting the trustee represent the dog.
Okay, so couldn't that mean, for example, that the dog's life is saved, but the owner gets put in jail?
In theory, yes, but what we've done is we've separated the two.
Okay.
They can't use the threat of we'll put the owner in jail as a basis for the owner waiving his rights on the dog. The dog is now being represented separately.
Through the pet trust.
Through the pet trust, through the trustee, who they can't put in jail. And therefore the threat to the owner doesn't mean anything anymore because the owner has no longer has the right to say, yes, kill him.
Wow, this is complicated law. This is a whole brave new world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And recently, we've been taking it a step further. We bring a lot of these in federal court under the Civil Rights Act as violations of the 4th and 14th Amendments.
Can you remind us what the amendments are?
4th Amendment is the right to property, and the 14th Amendment is the right to due process.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm sorry. I'm going to back up for a minute. I'm kind of fascinated by this is a very interesting branch of law, and one that is, I don't think, readily known by most people. How did you get into this?
That's sort of a funny story. We own greyhounds. They are our dog of choice.
Mm-hmm. And
about 7 years ago, my wife Robin was on Grey Talk, the Greyhound board, and there was a greyhound in Rhode Island named Lexus Doe, who was about 3 weeks off the track, and her owner had taken Lexus to a dog park, and as people do, let her off leash. Unfortunately, there was an owner of a 6-month-old Pomeranian pup who also thought it would be fun to watch her dog run with the big dogs.
Oh, no. I hear a sad story coming.
Unbelievably sad.
Oh.
Lexus, unfortunately, had possibly the highest prey drive I've ever seen in a dog. And within minutes, the Pomeranian pup was in Lexus's mouth and was being shaken and played with and eventually died. They seized Lexus, and the owner went to a dangerous dog hearing without counsel. And they basically said that you can either build a stone bunker, a cement bunker in your backyard and never let her out again other than to go to the vet, or we're going to kill her. He refused to build the bunker for both financial reasons and because it's cruel to the dog. At which point it started going around Grey Talk because the Greyhound community is a rather tight-knit community.
Greyhound community is huge. I've worked with them a lot in the past with wheelchairs.
Yeah, and Robin showed me the story and said, that's horrible, and I agreed. And Robin said, somebody should do something, and I agreed. And then she asked him, what are you going to do? And my answer is, I don't practice animal law. I don't live in Rhode Island, nor am I admitted in Rhode Island.
So you became a dog lawyer.
Well, and that unfortunately, so I said nothing, and that unfortunately wasn't the right answer. And I did some research. I found a quirk in the Rhode Island law that raised a constitutional question, which is my area, and we found an attorney up there who was willing to file the papers if I drafted them, so I drafted a set of papers that raised the constitutional issues, and he filed them, and then he made a phone call to the town attorney and suggested, do you really want to turn this into a federal case? Let them have the dog, and they agreed. And I got what we call our first get out of town by sundown order. The court ordered that as an officer of the court, I was to come to Rhode Island, take possession of the dog, remove the dog directly without stopping by the most direct means, never to return. And I'm assuming they were talking about the dog, but I'm not 100% sure.
Either you or the dog, right? Get out of town, Richard.
And that basically, from there, we started getting calls from a lot of people in the Greyhound community on how to deal with issues with animal control. And we formed the Lexus Project after Lexus. And initially it was simply information. We made a few phone calls. We helped a little bit. It was very private within the Greyhound community until someone called us about a dog, a Siberian Husky up in northern Connecticut, who was in jail for killing chickens. And we got involved in that. We were able to get her out. And that, when we went up for the hearing, it somehow had become it must have been a very slow news day because this was the story.
A dog killing chickens.
Yeah, that we were fighting for. It ended up making the evening news as far away as San Diego.
Wow.
And on the continent. I mean, I had clients. I didn't even know it was on Channel 7 News here in New York until I got calls from clients that I saw you on the news last night.
And you got this dog out of dog jail on what grounds after he killed these chickens? I understand if a dog kills livestock, you're within your legal rights to kill the dog in many states.
You're in your legal rights to kill the dog while the dog is attacking the livestock. Once the dog has stopped, you no longer have a right to kill it.
Now, this raises a question for me. I'm thinking back to the Pomeranian because I'm partial to little dogs, I have to say. So it was the owner of the Greyhound who, maybe quite foolishly let that dog off the leash, knowing
Hold
that.
on. So did the Pomeranian.
Yeah. Okay.
You saying the dog. Part of the problem is, while we as humans may think it's very cute to watch this tiny dog running with the big dogs, a lot of larger dogs do have issues with small dogs, especially small dogs who come charging at them, barking in what they consider attack mode.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big questions in law, and it's the dangerous dog laws, are an very interesting study. Because while we say dogs are property and don't have rights, if you ever read most of the dog laws around the country, the exceptions all deal with the state of mind of the dog.
The state of mind of the dog.
Yes. The dog is not a dangerous dog if it attacks when someone is trespassing on its property, if someone is attacking the owner or the dog's family.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of things that deal with what the dog was thinking. And the only decision on this comes out of Illinois that says provocation must be determined from the point of view of the dog using a reasonable dog standard.
Wow, that is fascinating.
And then once you've used that analysis, you then need to view it using the human self-defense test of, was the response reasonable based upon the provocation?
Mm-hmm. Just as we do for people, if your home is being attacked and so on. And
Yes, exactly the same. So while we say they're not human and can't think and don't have rights, every one of the laws deal with what the dog is thinking, or almost every one of them.
When did these laws come into existence? I'm curious about that. Is that a recent phenomenon, or have they been around?
Part of the problem is most of these laws date back to the 1800s, and they've been updated, but very poorly. Most of them have never been totally gone through and brought into the 21st century.
Yeah,
and that is what a lot of our litigation in federal court is about right now.
The history of this we talked about briefly, and we'll talk more about when we come back from our break. You're listening to Happy Healthy Pets with Mark C. Robinson, and I'm here with Lisa Murray, the blogger and director of PR at walkinpets.com, and Richard Rosenthal, Esquire, a New York dog lawyer. We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is Happy Healthy Pets with Mark C. Robinson. I'm Mark Robinson, and we're here with Lisa Murray, blogger and director of marketing at walkinpets.com, and with Richard Bruce Rosenthal, Esquire. Richard's website is thedoglawyer.com, and he's been telling us about dog law and some of the intricacies and complexities of it. Richard, there must be some very interesting cases that you've been on. You've already talked about two of them, one with Lexus where you got started and one with a dog in Connecticut that you got out of jail. Are there any other really illustrative stories that talk about the complexity of what you do?
Well, the one that just had a very bittersweet ending 6 years after it started. The next case, right after the first Connecticut case, we got called on a case in Milford, Connecticut, about a golden retriever who'd been in jail for almost a year. Buddy used to get out regularly, and every time Buddy got out, he ran down to the water and would play on the beach and swim in the water. One time, coming back, a dog that had previously attacked Buddy got into a scuffle with him again, and the woman holding him ended up falling on her butt. Unfortunately, her son was one of the attorneys who advertises on the sides of buses, who decided he saw a payday there and decided that in order to help him being able to sue on his mother's behalf, he needed to have the dog killed. And it became a real war. We got called in after Buddy had been in jail for almost a year. And we brought that into court. And after a lot of fighting, we were able to get Buddy released.
When you say Buddy was in jail, what do you mean? Do they have dog jails?
Well, he was taken. He was held by animal control. He lived most of his life, that whole year, in a cage. You know, he was taken out. He was allowed out for a little bit of time each day to move around, but basically he spent the whole time in a cage.
In jail, as you said. So this dog and Buddy get into a fight, and a woman
not
gets...
even a fight. I mean, it's sort of more a growling match. The woman got in the middle and ended up falling on her butt. And
then somebody decided to go after a payday.
Yes. You know, I mean...
Yeah, we do see that every now and then, and it's a shame when somebody's doing it just for financial gain. What happened to Buddy?
It became unbelievably contentious with the town. It was a media blitz back and forth. The town was taking the position they wouldn't allow anyone to see Buddy. They wanted releases for anything they had done, or any negligence to Buddy before they'd even allow anyone to see him. We obviously refused. We were asking what's the dirty little secret they're hiding, and it went back and forth. Finally, we came to, with the intervention of the judge, we were able to come to a workable solution that got Buddy released.
Back to his family?
No. To
Okay.
the Lexus Project.
Oh, okay.
Where we took him, we brought him down to a Greyhound facility that was willing to take care of him, decompress him after a year in jail, do a dental and everything on him, and through them we were able to find a home for him down in, I believe it was North Carolina, where he had his own lake. Mm-hmm. The local fire department, they're used to train on the lake. And so he became basically their mascot. And he just died last month. And we just got the last pictures of him swimming. And
but it sounds like he was living a happy, healthy life at the end.
Yes. He was one of our wonderful success stories that everything went... It couldn't have gone better for him.
Oh, that's nice. I have a quick question. When you said Buddy had gone to the beach, did he escape from jail and run down to the water?
No. This is when he lived with his owner. This
I
is before
see.
they took him in jail.
Oh, okay.
Every time he got out, they would find him down by the beach,
I see.
playing in the water.
So he loved. Well, that's wonderful, and I find it interesting when we talk about jail for a human. It's more rehabilitative. You send him to jail in the hopes that he can get out and be rehabilitated, but that's not true for a dog, is it? They send a dog to jail to put him away.
Well, to put him away most of the time, they don't get walked. They don't get any real exercise. Some of them have runs that let them get out so they're not doing their business right where they eat. But for the most part, it is a horrible life. They know they're there to die. And the longer they spend there, the more mental damage there is to them.
Of course, just like humans.
Yeah.
I imagine. So you're listening to Happy Healthy Pets with Mark C. Robinson. I'm Mark C. Robinson. I'm here with Lisa Murray, our Walkin' Pets blogger and marketing director, and our guest, Richard Rosenthal, Esquire, with thedoglawyer.com. That's www.thedoglawyer.com. And I guess the Lexus Project sounds like we just got a tweet here. We just got a tweet from Justin in Nashua. He's asking what kind of costs are associated with defending a dog?
It depends on how far it goes. A lot of the Lexus Project stuff has been financed by donations. The attorneys are all pro bono for the Lexus Project. When we do a lot of cases that aren't Lexus Project cases, that are actually paid cases, it can run $3,500, $5,000, and up, depending on how far we go. We are possibly, we've had cases down in Texas where we actually won the right to appeal. It went up on appeal. We won the right to appeal. It was actually headed for a jury trial before we were able to come to a settlement, where had the people been paying, would have probably been in the $7,000 to $10,000 range by the time it was done.
Well, people will spend that on their family. That's not unreasonable. Attorney Rosenthal, what would you like to see happen in dog law? What is it that you feel would make the biggest shift in the right direction?
The biggest shift in the right direction is when the municipalities start looking at animal lives as having value, which is starting to happen. I mean, right now, under most state law, if you kill a dog, the only damages are the cost for a replacement dog, which for owners of mixed breeds and
which can be nothing in most cases.
Is effectively nothing.
Dogs. Right.
There are some courts that are starting to look for older dogs at differing systems of valuing, such as the cost of caring for and feeding and training and vet bills over the years, which sometimes is able to get it. We're playing with a couple of theories. What we found is recently we've been going into federal court when it's the state that's killing the dog, such as the police shooting dogs because they look at it as target practice. On civil rights violations, we're not bound by the state valuation because the damages are not for the loss of the dog, but for the violation of the civil rights of the owner.
I see. So that's a whole different kind of case, isn't it?
Yes. But it allows some real damages. And on some of the cop shot cases, there have been 6 or 7 in the last year that have settled somewhere between, say, $40,000 and $200,000.
What cases are you referring to?
The cop shot cases.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cop shot dogs. And, it varies where in the country and what judge you're in front of. Some federal judges have a real sense of the Constitution and don't take the attitude that dogs' lives are worthless. A lot of federal judges, unfortunately, think it's okay that the cop talks about a dog that was running away from it. He was scared and had no choice but to shoot it out of fear for his own life. And I really worry about giving guns to people who wet themselves every time they see a dog.
I agree. Well put, Richard.
So it sounds like you practice this canine law all over the country. Is that right?
That is correct. I'm admitted in the federal court in some 7 states, and the other states I will associate with local counsel and move to be admitted just for the one case. But yes, I've litigated cases either directly or with other counsel in 27 states.
That's a broad range of practice.
It's a specialty for which there are very few people who are really dedicated to it full time. I can probably name the people on one hand who are really the experts in the field and really dedicated to it.
Do you think it's growing, or is there a way
Absolutely.
to grow it? Okay. Mm-hmm.
It is starting to grow. It is as our perceptions change, as the case law is going through the federal courts, and as civil rights cases are being won, which allow the recovery of attorneys' fees, attorneys are starting to see this as a viable practice area. Also, there's more and more litigation on service animals and emotional support animals in the landlord-tenant, in the disability fields. And the other area that we're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of cases and new case law is in pet custody.
Pet custody.
Yeah,
Excellent.
fascinating
That's what I
topic.
wanted to talk about.
You're going to need to come back on another show, because I'm sure we can talk about that for a long time. That's
an amazing area that, yeah, absolutely is. I could talk about at length.
Well, we hope to give you that opportunity, because I know we have a lot of listeners who have a great deal of interest. I'd also like to tell our listeners here a little bit about how they could get involved. The Lexus Project sounds like a very important work that you're doing, and is there a way, if people want to get involved with the Lexus Project and support it, how they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. If they want to find out about the Lexus Project, it's www.thelexusproject.org.
great.
All right. We're going to put that along with your website, www.thedoglawyer.com, on our website with the podcast listing. And our website is www.walkinpets.com/radio. I know